All right, we are ready to go. So if this is your first 411 webinar that you're joining with us this evening, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really, really excited about this one. And just to give you a little background on the format, the 411 stands for 4 integration strategies, and we pull those from our SOS, or Spotlight on Strategies. So it's just really quick tips and tricks on using digital media and using discovery education resources with strategies in the classroom. And then I'll talk a little bit about one program, and in this case we're going to talk this evening about the Discovery Education STEM Camp, which is an amazing resource that was just released within the last week or so. And then our trending topic this evening is DEN's Got Talent. So I have with me this evening some of the most amazing DEN stars that I've had the opportunity to work with and get to know from all across the country, and they're going to be sharing some tips, tricks, tools, resources, all sorts of really exciting, amazing things with you this evening. So we'll go ahead and just dive in, starting with the integration strategies. So the SOS, or Spotlight on Strategies, is a weekly digital media integration challenge, and this is posted on our DEN blog, and it goes out about usually every Monday of every week. And these are great, quick tips and tricks to share with your colleagues and to share with your peers about how to use discovery education and how to use digital media. So how you find the series is you go to the denblogs.com, and that's www.denblogs.com. And once you're there, you're going to click on SOS. So you can see here the yellow arrow is pointing to SOS, which is in the top kind of blue bar towards the center of the DEN blog. And when you click on that, this is kind of a list of what you'll see. So these are posted on Mondays, and with each SOS series or strategy, you're given a PDF version, a link to a PDF, so you can actually print it out. You can kind of make your own little booklet as they're released each Monday. And each strategy provides a background about the strategy, an example of how to use the strategy, a challenge of how to use it in your classroom, and then even sometimes a bonus. So the 4 that we are sharing this evening, the first one is called Learning in Full Bloom. And this is, thinking back to Bloom's taxonomy, and all of you are very familiar, I'm sure, with Bloom's taxonomy. It's been around for years. But this is an example of how to really put those different levels, those higher order thinking skills, in front and center by having students, by developing a list of either questions or activities for students to do at each level of Bloom's. So let's say, for example, we're talking about the water cycle. And in this case, you can see that I have listed here a series of either activities or questions for students to answer at each of those levels of the Bloom's taxonomy. So at the very basic level, the remember level, they're writing a list of 3 to 5 vocabulary words that are essential in understanding the water cycle. As they move up into the higher levels to analyze, to evaluate, and create, you can see that they're asked in the create, for example, to perform a public service announcement. So maybe they create a quick video or they perform it live in the classroom about how, informing the community of how the water cycle impacts their community. So using this strategy, just thinking through, as you think through what you're teaching in the classroom, starting to develop either activities or questions that get to those different levels of Blooms. So that's our first integration strategy. It's called Learning in Full Bloom. And again, these are all on our DEN blog. The second one is called Multiple Perspectives. So in this case, oftentimes using an image from Discovery Education. In this case, this is an image called Federal Troops at Rest. And I'm actually, in order to show this as best as I can, I'm going to go and share my desktop for just a second. So give me 1 second here. And I'm going to pull that up, because what's great about images in Discovery Education is that you can preview them nice and large, and you can really zoom into specific areas. So if you think about Howard Gardner and his multiple intelligences, this is getting students, using an image, getting students to think about different aspects or do different activities based on those learning styles that they're most comfortable with. So for example, this is an image called Federal Troops at Rest. It's an image, let's say we're studying the Civil War during the Civil War time period. And when I zoom into this area right here, I can see that this gentleman is reading a newspaper. So maybe I have the students, one of the options is for the students to take either side of the Civil War and write an article that might be found in a newspaper during that time period. So if I zoom back out and zoom in a different area, kind of in the forefront here, I can see a group of gentlemen that are playing a game, maybe some cards. So having students think about that time period and coming up with a game that would be easy to carry around, considering how much they had to walk and how much they had to carry, and that could be help to pass the time during this Civil War. So that really lends itself to those kinesthetic learners, whereas the newspaper article might be more of your verbal and linguistic learners. If I look at this area here, I can see that this gentleman is reading a letter. So maybe he's reading a letter from home, maybe it's from his wife or from his brother or sister or parent. So using that intrapersonal intelligence, having a student write a letter to the soldier, or having them write the letter from the perspective of the soldier, talking about what it's like to be in war. And then if I look kind of in the middle here, I see a gentleman sitting on a drum, and maybe to appeal to those musical learners, having students write a song with lyrics that would really talk about what life was like on the battlefield. So I'm going to go back into, I'm going to stop sharing my desktop and go back into the presentation. So again, that strategy is using multiple perspectives. The next SOS strategy is called 20 questions, and I'm sure you've all played 20 questions many times before, but this is kind of taking a twist on the game 20 questions, where you would take a number of images from Discovery from a specific time or a specific concept that you're learning. In this case, let's say I'm introducing the causes of the Revolutionary War, and maybe I put multiple images around the room. And this particular image that you can see here is a picture of a cartoon of King George and kind of a particular perspective on the Revolutionary War. So as I have all these images around the room, the students can walk around maybe in groups or individually and start to develop a list of questions that they have about that period of time or about that concept. So they might, maybe I have a picture of the Boston Massacre, and they might write, how did the Boston Massacre help lead or fuel as a cause of the Revolutionary War? Or maybe I have a picture of George Washington, and they want to know, how was George Washington specifically involved in the Revolutionary War? So then as a class, we all come together and we create our list of 20 questions. And the whole idea behind the questioning is that, when you create a questioning culture, the students, their brains have to work harder as they try to think through questions and develop questions. So it's a really good strategy for them to start to identify what is it that they need to learn, that they want to learn about a new topic or concept. And the last of the 411 strategies we're sharing this evening, and this one actually has not even been released yet. It will be released next Monday, so you get a nice sneak peek. This one is called a snowball fight. So even though it's 80 degrees here in Chicago today, you can still have a fun snowball fight in your classroom. So this is using videos. So in this case, let's say I'm introducing a video segment on renewable resources. So what I would do is I would have students take out a piece of blank paper, and as they're watching the video, they have to write something that they learned, a fact or information on the piece of paper during that quick video segment. Let's say it's 3 or 4 minutes long. And then after the video is over, you have everybody crumple up their piece of paper, making a snowball, and then on the count of 3, everyone throws their snowballs in the air, and then you have to pick up a different one and open it up and add a supporting fact to what the other student has written, or add a new fact. So it's kind of a fun snowball fight, but you're reading what other people are learning, and then you're adding an additional fact to what they've written, or a new fact to add on to that. And that is our snowball fight strategy. So again, those are 4 of our integration series on the SOS, on the DEN blogs. And again, you get to that by going to denblogs.com and clicking on the SOS, and those come out every Monday. All right, so the first program that I want to mention, or the only program I'm going to mention, and I'm going to turn it over to our panelist this evening is the new Discovery Education STEM Camp that was just released. So I'm going to, again, share my desktop so that you can see what that website looks like. Let me just switch over to that so I can find it. Here we go. So if you just go to discoveryeducation.com/STEM, this was just released about a week or two ago, and basically what this is, let me just scroll down here, is a series of resources and hands-on labs to help for, after school programs or summer opportunities to really keep kids inspired and moving beyond the classroom. It's just providing them access to amazing resources in the STEM fields. So there's engineering challenges, there's investigations, and there's all sorts of things that they're going to continue to build out. You can see right now that they have a whole curriculum built out for water, and coming soon we have urban infrastructure and energy. So these are all curricula or standards-aligned curricula that it's available at no cost to schools or districts or nonprofits or whoever wants to use it. Maybe parents want to use it as part of kind of a summer activity for their students. So just wanted to make sure that you knew that that was available. And again, that's just discoveryeducation.com/STEM, and this is Discovery's STEM Camp, which is free resources for the summer in the areas of STEM. Let me go back to my presentation here. So just really quickly, any questions on the integration strategies or the Discovery Ed STEM Camp before we move along? Everyone good? Feel free to use your chat window if you have any questions. Awesome. So let's get to the exciting part this evening. I cannot tell you how excited I am to introduce some of the most amazing educators that I have had the opportunity to work with over this past year. Most of them I've met in person, some of them I've only met virtually, but this evening we're really celebrating the talent that the DEN has, that the DEN community has, and these are some of our DEN stars, 9 of our DEN stars, 9.5 if we count the baby in Lindsay's tummy that's due in August. So 9 of our DEN stars from across the country, all the way from Charlotte to Miami to Albuquerque to Las Vegas to Milwaukee to Raleigh, North Carolina. Hopefully I didn't miss any of the cities that are represented there. But they're each going to be sharing with you this evening. And in fact, 2 of them weren't able to join us live, and so I'm going to start and present on their behalf. They were so kind to still send some slides and share some of the great things that they've done this year, even though that they weren't able to join us live this evening. So I'll actually start by presenting Eric and Susan, and then I will turn it over to my panelists this evening. So what I think will probably work best, feel free to use the chat feature if you do have specific questions, but if you want to keep your questions to the end, we will have a Q&A session for all of the panelists at the very end of the webinar. So I'll start with Eric Gonzalez. Eric is a star educator in Miami-Dade, and he's been in education for 14 years, and in fact, he was just recently promoted to IPREP Math Facilitator, so congratulations to Eric. And what he is sharing, and I'm going to do my best to share on his behalf this evening, is this idea of creating math videos for a middle block activity. And so what was happening in Eric's school, particularly, was that math scores were very low. And the middle block was much longer than other periods. So there was a school-wide activity that would be done during that middle block to really focus on math remediation school-wide. Well, the issue was that no matter where the students were, whatever class they had at that time, they would break for 20 minutes to do the math activity. And some of the teachers were not necessarily comfortable with the topic. They weren't all math teachers, obviously. And so oftentimes, the students were trying to do the worksheets, trying to do the activities, but it just wasn't really working. And so Eric worked with his school to collaborate and solve this problem. And the solution that they came up with was to deliver consistent and targeted remediation using technology. So actually what Eric did is he leveraged his smartboard and the smart video recorder to create videos. So what he would do is would find a worksheet on a specific type of problem and import the worksheet directly into the Smart Notebook software. and then use that screen capture tool, for those of you that are familiar with smart boards, same as the Promethean board and the active software, but just, different names of the software. But he would record the screen and record his voice of the lesson. So then teachers, no matter what block they were in, have access to these lessons, these digital video lessons that they could share with the students so that they could receive, no matter where they were, they could all receive the same high-quality remediation school-wide. So what I love most about this story is that Eric went above and beyond and really true to the spirit and the vision and the mission of the Den. He shared an example of the video that he created on Discovery Education. So when you get a link to this presentation, you'll see here where it says shared with the Den via Discovery Education. That will actually link out to the video that Eric created. And anyone that is a Den star has the ability to upload content, whether it's a worksheet or a video or a presentation, maybe a PowerPoint, whatever it is, you can upload it to Discovery Education using Media Share. So he shared that to the entire community, so anyone that's looking for that video can find it and use it as a resource in their classroom. And then he kicked it up even another notch where this expanded to his regular classroom, this idea of using videos, and he had students use a free app on the iPad called Screen Chomp to work math problems and record their own voice explaining the process. So he even took it a step further and got the students involved in creating these videos. So that's Eric's example this evening about leveraging technology and videos to kind of flip your classroom, I guess, and create these videos to walk students through the process of solving math problems. So that's the first one. And the second one this evening that isn't also able to join us, so I'm going to be presenting on her behalf, is Susan Bowden. And Susan is an instructional coach in Albuquerque Public Schools. And Susan has been in education for 21 years, and you'll notice that I have interesting facts about each of our presenters this evening, and Susan's interesting facts is that she loves stars, and in fact she wanted me to let you all know that her Den star is her favorite star, which we always love to hear. So her topic is supporting the supporters, and in Susan's role as an instructional coach, one of the things that she did this year is worked with instructional coaches on how to help their teachers use and integrate Discovery Education. So what she did, and actually let me go to the next page. So Susan is an instructional coach at Zuni Elementary, which is a magnet school. And Zuni was actually a pilot to be a learning lab school for the district for Discovery Education, which means that they got a lot of really intensive job-embedded coaching professional development. And then shortly after that, the district made the decision to go district-wide with Discovery Education. And so she quickly realized that it was going to be critical to reach out to her other instructional coaches across the district to really help them to reach teachers. So what she did is she brought together 30 elementary and middle school instructional coaches for a Den event. And the goal was to connect with the Den and all of the amazing resources and support systems that are in place, and also to build face-to-face networks within the district. And one of the things that Susan loves to provide is context or a theme for her learners so that they have something to attach that new learning to. And I just love this. I think the more that we can theme or create some kind of analogy that goes along with something new that we're learning, the better we'll be able to remember it. So in this case, she guided the participants through the activity through using the analogy that integrating digital media in the classroom is a lot like taking a cruise. So there was three different aspects of their cruise. First, they were encouraged to build their crew by connecting with each other and by exploring what is the Den blog and developing their own PLN. And then next, they practiced intentionally planning instruction using instructional strategies that focus not just on what the media is that the teacher selects, but on how the media is going to be used. And that's where she really leveraged those SOS strategies that I mentioned and shared earlier. And then lastly, they had to learn about how to overcome the challenges that often accompany the adoption of new technology. So Susan shared some suggestions and strategies collected from classroom teachers at Zuni, and took time talking about the challenges that they saw in their own schools. And one of the major emphasis of the event that she hosted for these instructional coaches was helping them to see that tried and true strategies that are highly effective with print are equally as powerful when used with media resources. So the coaches who spent the day with her, they spent about an hour investigating how traditionally print-based instructional strategies can also be applied to media. They really loved, they were immersed in experiencing why it's critical that effective strategies be used in the classroom, and they dug into the SOS strategies. And then at the end, actually, Janita, my colleague, and I got to join virtually via Google Hangout to meet some of the instructional coaches and say hello to them as well. So lastly, Susan, just like Eric, she had them create, the last portion of the workshop, they created their own bulletin board, which is, we like to put the word den into everything. So instead of bulletin board, it was a bulletin board, which is what the instructional coaches walked away with so that they could use that to share with teachers all sorts of tips and tricks and resources. So Susan has put all of this information about the bulletin board. If you search Discovery Education, just search Den Bulletin Board, and she uploaded it as well to MediaShare so that you could use this as a resource or a tool for professional development for teachers or instructional coaches or whomever, anyone that's supporting the integration of Discovery. So this is a great, great resource. And that is Susan. So at this point, I am going to hand it over to our next presenter. And you guys can, if you're tired of hearing my voice, you can listen to somebody else. I'm going to have Marlo go first. And Marlo is joining us this evening from Raleigh, North Carolina. So Marlo, I'll give you a second to unmute yourself, and I'm going to pass the ball over to you so that you can advance over through the slides.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. Can everybody hear me? I hope. So my funny thing for today is I live out in the middle of the country. Like there's farm fields all around us, and evidently everybody around me decided that they were going to mow their hay and mow their yards today. So if you hear this horrendous noise in the background, I apologize. Hopefully you can't hear it at all. My name is Marla Gaddis, and I work for the Wake County Public School System as their Director of Instructional Technology Media Services. I'm just about to finish my 19th year in public education, which I love. So Jenny asked us for this interesting fact, and I realized I'm a very boring person. So my thing for now is that I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, although I live in the South now and would not go back if my life depended on it. So the topic that Jenny asked me to speak about was PLN speed dating. And so one of the things I talk about a lot is personal learning networks and how important it is as educators to have a system for learning. So often we get bogged down in the day-to-day, works of our jobs, and we forget that if we don't continue to learn, that we ourselves, I know on days when I have not learned something new myself or have spent some time to do that, I find that that I feel kind of down in the dumps. So how important it is to have that system. And one of the things I tell our teachers and our administrators is at least 15 minutes a day. Everybody has 15 minutes a day, whether you you can find it or not solid, but I joke with people all the time that my 15 minutes is usually in little moments I find in the bathroom where I can lock myself in. I have an 8-year-old in my house, and so sometimes that's the only peace and quiet I get. But we also talk about with a personal learning network how important it is not just to connect and read and experience, but it's also really important to collaborate and contribute to the general conversations. I know I've met some fantastic people in my career all through my personal learning network. So one of the things that I did just recently I've done it several times now with a group, is getting people familiar with social media as a resource because, honestly, although I have stacks and stacks of magazines that I have to go through that I read and newspapers that I read, I usually let them pile up and then kind of hit it one night and I just go through them all. But where I learn most is social media, and so I'm a big fan of Twitter and Pinterest and blogs and many other things. I'm Facebook as well. But I think people are a little afraid of it, and they don't necessarily want to go to an hour workshop on Twitter or a 2-hour workshop or whatever that is. So sometimes it's just getting them with their feet wet. And so one of the things that I did just recently was speed dating, if you're familiar with that concept. And so in a 45-minute activity, they get 15 minutes per resource. I give them little cards that have specific Pinterest accounts or Twitter accounts or blogs. They have to investigate the one card, and then they share with their group. And then I give them, at the end of that 15 minutes, I give them another set of resources. The big piece is getting them to understand to share what they learned is just as important as learning it themselves. So we get them to share it out verbally. So the little cards that we use look like this. And I think all the cards I think Jenny's given you the link to the Den blog where we posted all of my cards you can use. And I think they're doc files, so they're all Word files. So if you want to edit them, change them however you want to, you can. But we have it so that they can either do the QR code and with their iPad and just pop it right up, or they can type it in. So they need to understand they don't have to have an account to look at Twitter or to look at Pinterest or to look at blogs. That they can do that without the account. But what we found out really quickly was that folks were sucked into the learning. They absolutely loved at least one resource. And my point to them, honestly, was I don't care which one you use. Twitter is what works for me. I don't care for blogs on the whole because it takes me forever to get time to read them. But Twitter I can read in my 140 characters, click the link, and I can be done in a few minutes. So those were some of the things that we've looked at. I do usually in my work show them all the ways that you can connect to Discovery Ed through this. So Discovery Ed has a blog. Of course, we've been looking at that. They have Pinterest accounts, if you didn't know that, and they have, of course, a Twitter account. So I've shown them all that. So after I've gotten them hooked into one of the resources, then I just kind of talk to them about how they organize their learning because it's so important not only to look, but it gets overwhelming. I think everybody in their lifetime has gotten to the point where they're fed up with social media and they don't want to look at it anymore because you get obsessed. And so when we look at organizing our learning, I share with them some of the resources that I use to organize mine, and I actually show them my account. So I actually use Hootsuite, but I know a lot of folks use TweetDeck. But Hootsuite allows me to kind of keep up with my Twitter accounts and see everything in a nice linear type A personality, which I am totally, be able to do that. RSS feeds, I used to use Google Reader, but now, as you know, that's now Feedly. So Feedly works really well. I've actually been really pleased. Actually, I think I like it better than Google Reader, but it allows me to look at all of my blogs and only see the ones that are new, so I don't have to weed through every single blog. And then, of course, I always have my iPad on me. So 3 of the apps that I use religiously, Flipboard and Zeit, are magazines where you can link your social media, but it also pulls much more into that. So it makes it look like a magazine on your iPad. You look really smart when you're flipping through that, by the way. And then Pocket is another one of my favorites because so often I see a link or I get to an article and I just need to save it for later, and so I just put it in my Pocket. And that used to be Read It Later, I think was what it used to be called. So that's kind of what we've done to get folks interested into not only social media, but making sure that they are constantly keeping up with their own learning. So feel free to ask any questions later on, and if you connect with me anytime. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Marlo. And it looks like we've got Lloyd up next, so I'm just going to pass the ball over to you, Lloyd, so that you can take control of the pages.
All right. So I'm Lloyd Goldberg. I teach in Clark County, which is basically Las Vegas. So right now I'm the 3rd grade inclusion teacher. In case you were wondering, I'm the guy on the left in the picture if you're looking at it, so just to avoid any confusion. Basically what I do for math is all performance task, and kind of explain why we do that in a minute, but everything is elongated, constructed response, performance task. We don't do worksheets, we don't do math facts or anything like that. Basically the reason is performance tests are structured off of smarter balance assessments. If you're one of those states, I believe it's over 30 now, next year, the year after, all of the state tests are going to be constructed response, so the kids need to obviously be familiar with that. It's also a much higher DOK question type for the kids. It's much higher Bloom's for all the students. In my opinion, and solely in my opinion and not that of Discovery Education, worksheets are pretty much useless, and all they do is serve to reinforce rote memorization. They don't have the process. They don't have collaborative learning. They don't teach concepts, or they only teach concepts in isolation. So what we do for this one for example, it's the tower dilemma. So kids have to create essentially a tower. And the instructions are a lot longer than this, but they have to build a tower in their collaborative groups, and we use heterogeneous groupings. They have a strict budget of $250. They don't actually have money, it's just a math process. And they're only given 5 items: large pretzels, small pretzels, large marshmallows, small pretzel, marshmallows, and graham crackers. And that's basically the only instruction. Everything else is they have to figure it out on their own. They have to decide and discuss everything, what the topic is going to be, what the blueprint is going to look like. And then they also get, which says if you go over $250, you lose points. If you go under $200, you gain additional. So there's a lot of other criteria in there that they have to figure out. You know, do we want over and get a really good tower, but we lose points on our budget, things of that nature. So with Discovery, there's a few great videos that we just do to kind of start off to build a little background knowledge. The first one is just called Size and Scale of Skyscrapers, and it's a 6th to 8th grade band. It's only about 13 minutes long. And it kind of just gives an overview on how skyscrapers are built, the role of the engineer, the role of the architect, skyscrapers throughout, for lack of a better term, history, like the 1970s. But, you know, the exterior structures, first the mortar and concrete. And then there's also a great build video. The whole thing is about an hour, but the skyscraper check is only about 8 minutes long. So it depends on how your kids are doing that day. If you want to show the 8-minute, or if you just really take an hour and kill it, you can do the whole thing. But my 3rd graders are able to very easily follow along with these 6th grade videos, and they have no problems. Occasionally, what I'll do just to make sure that they are paying attention is I'll do some of the strategies that Janita had mentioned in one of our meetings. You know, sometimes I'll just turn the volume off, let them watch the video, and then have them come back to me and tell me what did they learn, what did they figure out about skyscrapers. Or afterwards, I'll have them do the 2 truths and a lie strategy. So they have to all write out 2 truths from the video, 1 lie from the video, and then we ask the questions to the class, and we have to figure out which was the lie. That way you can quickly tell which kids are paying attention. And then the other thing we use is we go onto the virtual lab. While unfortunately they don't have a virtual lab for marshmallows and pretzels, which somebody really needs to get on that, by the way. They do have a couple engineering virtual labs where kids can go on and determine basically the tensile strength of wood and of steel and of iron and aluminum and all these things, that these terms that they hear in the videos, and they can see why and kind of play along with which one's going to be stronger, which one can handle the most weight, and then they can see the evolution of a skyscraper throughout time. It went from stone to metal to the different kinds of alloys that they use. And the other thing we take a look at is the Quake It, Don't Shake It virtual lab, mainly because these have to be freestanding structures once they build them. So, and they're going to be moving around the room a few times, so this gives a good idea on how buildings are going to react to movement and how maybe that should affect their construction, because in order to get an exceeds on the rubric, their buildings need to be over 3 feet tall. So if you're building something very thin, it may not laughs when you move it from one part of the room to the other. It's kind of like those cake competitions when they move it from the cooking table to the display table, and they all collapse and everybody thinks it's funny. But they need to figure out how to build a structure that will actually withstand some natural forces as well. And then the virtual labs tie back into the video as well, and it ties into their actual building pretty well. And a great thing on Discovery, there's some lesson plans that are very similar, already created and already on in PDF format on there. The actual titles I just posted, Engineering Project, Designing a Glass House, and Student Investigation Sheet, Testing a Skyscraper. So these are, a little bit shorter. I think the Testing a Skyscraper one is a lower grade band, so you can even kind of differentiate. So if you have some kids who are struggling, again, I'm the inclusion teacher, so I have students that are basically run the gamut in third grade. I have kids still working on letter sound recognition, and I have kids reading and doing math on a high school, freshman, sophomore level. So again, differentiation is the key, and Discovery already has some great resources up on there about that. And then some non-Discovery resources. Ed Helper has some great stories on there. Google Earth. I know people mentioned TED Talks. There's actually a marshmallow challenge on there. What he goes around, and I think that's only about a 7-minute video as well, about how to build and how to actually work collaboratively. So the kids all get excited. They think they're going to learn how to build their towers, and turns out it only teaches them how to work in groups, which is also another important part. And then not the most well-known holiday, but September 3rd is actually National Skyscraper Day. So it's one of those things you can go on Google Earth if you live in a city with skyscrapers. Don't know how many there are in North Carolina or in Albuquerque, but it's one of those things you can go on and check them out and see your region, your area, and tie back into what the kids are building. Part of the questioning on the project is, what real-life skyscrapers does your construction look like? And then overall, it hits virtually almost all of the third grade Common Core standards. For math, it hits a ton of the ELA standards, a few of the science ones, and then if you incorporate the Google Earth and a lot of the geography component, you can bring in a lot of the social studies standards as well. But that's basically how we use Discovery for math. We do it as performance task for virtually everything. The whole program itself takes the better part of about 3 weeks from start to finish to complete, and the only thing that I need to do, as my fax machine goes off in the background, the thing that I need to do is go out and actually just buy the pretzels and marshmallows. So all this stuff up, there we go, turn off the fax machine. All the stuff that is, I'm throwing it up either tonight or tomorrow up on my Teachers Pay Teacher site, so everybody's free to go and pull it off there, or I can just email it to you, and I'll give you the free version, which is the same as the pay version, except you don't have to pay for it. So, and again, if any other questions, you can just throw it to me in the chat or when we're done. But I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Lloyd. So do you ever have any issues with people eating the materials before you get to the point where you're actually building the skyscrapers? I think By
people, do you mean me or the students?
Right. I think I would be guilty of that.
Yeah, I'm munching on it constantly. But what I tell the students is that once they set their budget, they have a we say there's no returns, and how do I put it? There's no returns for a manufacturer defect. So once they buy everything, that's what they have. They have to go over budget if they want any more. So they're free to eat it, but then they're just going to go over budget and they won't be able to finish it.
Right.
But they don't know that they're going to be able to eat everything once they're done. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
No problem.
And I'm going to pass the ball over to Miss Neva. And Neva, you should be able to then advance through the slides. So just make sure your phone is unmuted and you can go ahead.
All right, wonderful. Well, good afternoon, evening, everyone. Like I said, I'm Neva Moga. I work in Milwaukee Public Schools, and I'm an instructional technology specialist there. And that is true. I learned to use email from my grandma. She was on AOL before I was even using email. So just a little bit about what I wanted to share today was really how we're starting in Milwaukee Public Schools to create DEN stars. So our district's pretty large. We have over 120 schools, and supporting a district-wide initiative for Discovery Ed as an army of one is a challenge, as you can imagine. And so I've been struggling trying to do this for several years now, and we've had various initiatives that we've used to get this underway. So one thing we had in our district were called instructional technology leaders, and basically we kind of deputized one person in every school, so 120 some of these people, and we would train these teachers in a variety of technology tools and skills. And they were kind of the one-stop shop for anything tech-related. That was our go-to person at the school site. Well, you know, as budget that we were using to fund that program and how things go like that, we, well, had to kind of dissolve that program. And so the past couple of years, we've, you know, not really had a strong focus on discovery education as we'd like as a district-wide resource, one of our premier resources that we promote in our district. So, you know, we've had library media specialists, but again, we don't have one library media specialist at every school who can help champion this. So this spring, I paired up with our with our science curriculum specialist, because she also had a desire. She is new to our district, but she purchased Discovery Ed, the science supplemental resources, and so she had a similar challenge in trying to get the word out about science. So we created some professional development academies where we were creating DEN stars, and we solicited via email all library media specialists. I maintained my list of ITLs, our instructional technology leaders, and so I blast them with emails every now and again. You know, 100 and some teachers out there who are technology users. And then we also targeted any K-8 science teachers who were interested in becoming our DEN stars in the district. So they come to 2 sessions. The first session, because some of them come and they have a whole lot of experience with Discovery Ed, and then there are some come and they're less familiar with DE. So we start out by giving them a treasure hunt. They can work together with someone else. I got the treasure hunt from the DEN. Went on Media Share where someone had posted treasure hunts, and we tweaked it a little bit, and then had them go through some key points about discovery education in general. And then that's going to help them do something similar when they're introducing this back at their school. So in the first session that they come to, they learn all about streaming. And then the second session they come to, they learn all about discovery ed science. So me and the science curriculum specialist, she created kind of the session for DE Science, and then I went through the Discovery Ed regular streaming portion. And then I also taught them how to be the site manager for their school so they can assist staff with logging in. So they have access to, you know, send other teachers their passwords, just so if they do share and work with them on the resource, there's quick access for getting that information and they don't have to contact Discovery for that. Some things when they came, what we expected them to do, and I liked how someone was talking about their theme of the boat or the cruise ship. I did more of a star theme, obviously, because we want to create these stars in the district. But they have to host 2 events at the school level to promote streaming and science. And then we said they didn't have to start with the whole school, start with a grade level team or a group of teachers if they were a coach or a library media specialist. You know, target some teachers you were already working with, assist them not only in accessing, but using Discovery Ed. And then we also have Moodle as an online community within Milwaukee Public Schools. So we have an online community for them to network just amongst ourselves, but then we also are encouraging them to become active members in the DEN. And I continue to show them, yep, I got this from the DEN. Here's another great resource from the DEN to promote the youth. It's a really cool site. And then we've already had some of them email us and say that they've received their star status. So we're hoping our group of like 30 of you 30 of our participants will all become stars, and then we'll hopefully continue to grow this in the upcoming year. So out of our first couple of sessions, we've yielded about 30, which is maybe a third of our district, which will help, get the word out about Discovery Ed and the DE Science resources. That's it for what I wanted to share today. So hopefully, because I saw the next presenters, I'm very interested in what they have to say, so I'll pass the ball.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neva. And it looks like we've got Glenda next, so I'm just going to change your role, Glenda, over
All right.
so that you can take over.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Glenda Moten, and I'm with Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I'm a Science Curriculum Support Specialist with the Education Transformation Office, and basically what that means is that we turn around low-performing schools. I've been in education approximately 10 years. It's a second career for me because I was with Delta Airlines for 23 years, but education has always been at the top of the list. What I wanted to share with you this evening is an icebreaker, and it's called Barriers and Bridges. And as a Science Curriculum Support Specialist, we do lots of workshops here with Miami-Dade County. And so initially when you come into workshops, you want to give the teachers or the science coaches and teachers something to kind of get them loosened up so that they can really have fun. So this particular icebreaker, it's called Barriers to Bridges, and it can be used at any professional development session or as a team-building exercise with faculty or staff, and it could go across all curriculum as well. So to get started, basically all you need are brown lunch paper bags and markers. And the first thing that you're going to do is that you're going to take one of the bags and you're going to write the bridges, which are the successes. And so you can identify, for example, if we're talking about developing a functional science lab, on the front of one of the brown paper bags, you can write great resources, having the use of technology, attending professional development workshops, and having support in as well as outside of the classroom. So they would write that on the front of the bag, which are the successes, which are the bridges. You turn that same bag over, and then you're going to write your barriers. And barriers would be things that would kind of impede you from going forward. For example, if you're trying to build a functional science lab, you can have things on the back of that bag that's like lack of materials, supplies are hard to get. Sometimes teachers are intimidated by the science content, and sometimes teachers are afraid to conduct science experiments. So on one side, you have your bridges. On the opposite side, you have your barriers. Now, you have a second paper bag, and with that second paper bag, you're going to open both bags, and you're going to place the front end of the bag that has no writing on it on the inside of the bag that has the writing with the barriers and bridges. And then once you've done that, then it's going to stand up like a brick wall. So if you see the examples that are there, and you can use this as an opportunity to actually do a gallery walk and look at some of the common threads of the bridges as well as the barriers. And it's an excellent way to promote teamwork and collaboration among colleagues. If you really can imagine being at an event or a workshop with maybe 100 people, and you give them a topic to where they can actually express their successes with it, and then on the opposite side, put the barriers. And when you see that brick wall of the bags, because it actually stands up like a brick wall, it is amazing to see. And you'll be amazed that when people aren't really collaborating and they're just writing their thoughts down, you're going to see some of the common threads with the topic. And so basically, it's a wall of success. And actually what you can do is that at the beginning of any school year with new faculty and new teachers that are coming in, you can actually have this done as an activity with the staff. And as you go throughout the year, you can, during your faculty meetings, you can identify those things that you successfully achieved. And then on the opposite side, look at the barriers that were achieved as well. And you can mark those with stars. And so that's what I wanted to share with you this evening. It's a great way to have teachers come together to collaborate and just really to express themselves. But keep in mind that it can be done across any curriculum. If you're thinking about reading, you can have comparison and contrast. If you're talking about math, you can do a number of things, social studies as well as writing. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. It's a great way to get teachers to really have fun prior to the start of a professional development session. Thank you.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Glenda. That is such a great strategy.
You're welcome.
Love it. And someone was asking, Francesca was asking, and I'd love to know too, where did you come up with this, or where did you hear about this strategy?
Well, I'm known as the icebreaker queen. I actually spoke with a colleague of mine because we do so many workshops, and I was like, wow, what can I do? And I called a colleague, and she gave me this advice. She says, go to the store, get the paper bags. And I did what she said to do. And I tell you, it was amazing. And this is just a few people that were at this workshop, maybe about 25 or 30 teachers. So I actually got the idea from a colleague, and I just implemented it. And I've actually presented at state conference, because when you have a large group of people, at a meeting or a workshop, is just a great way to see exactly where people are thinking and some of the concerns. And basically, we have some of the same concerns, regardless as to what the topic is about. So I actually got it from a colleague.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. That was
You're welcome.
Wonderful. All right, so moving along, the next on our list of presenters is Rhonda Duke from Clark County in Las Vegas. So Rhonda, if you want to take yourself off mute, and I believe I gave you presentation access, so you should be able to navigate through your slides.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jenny.
Sure.
Hi, everybody. As Jenny said, I am from Clark County School District. I actually am one of the DEN ambassadors with Lloyd. Right now I'm a 4th grade teacher, and actually next year I'm moving into 3rd grade, so I might just be stealing that idea from Lloyd. I've been in education about 11 years. I don't really consider myself all that interesting, but right now I'm training for a half marathon that I'm hoping to enter in January of 2014. I actually want to run the Tinkerbell half marathon, so looking forward to a tutu in wings. I'm going to be talking about using classroom responders for assessment purposes. All right. Classroom responders are a set of hardware and software that facilitates teaching activities. I don't know how many of you are familiar with them, so I just wanted to give you just kind of a little overview. Generally, a multiple choice question is projected by an overhead or a computer projector. And then students are able to think about an answer and click, which is where it gets its name, clicker, using a handheld transmitter. And depending on how the teacher sets it up, they can actually do it student-directed or teacher-directed. They can change their answer, or again, depending on how it's set up, you would just, you can set it up so they only get their one answer. And then software on the teacher's computer collects the student answers and then produces a bar chart that you can look at. Depending on the software that you have available, you can actually export to grade books and that type of thing. These are just some available classroom responder systems. I actually have the e-instruction, which is right here. I think that may have worked. Never actually done this before. So I actually have the e-instruction, but there's lots of different kinds. Some of them come with your interactive whiteboard. You don't actually have to have an interactive whiteboard to use it. So there are several different companies that create them where you don't have to have anything at all. In fact, classroom responders are really big in college now, and so participants in lecture halls and that type of thing generally purchase the iClicker, and depending on how their university sets it up, they can use that in multiple classes. Just some examples and some uses for those clickers. You can use it for classroom attendance. You can have, if students are allowed to keep them in their desk, obviously depending on your climate and your student population. My particular class right now would probably turn them into video game units of some sort. So this year would not be my year for that. But if you have them keep it, they could do classroom attendance. So you could come in and they would have already responded, and then you would be able to get that information on who was here just very quickly. You can do daily warm-ups. So just something for them to do when they walk in the room. They can go through student directed, as I said, and answer questions. One really awesome idea that I saw that I actually haven't used in my own classroom yet, but would love to try, is you can set up your software to only accept responses for about 30 seconds. And then as you're going through your lesson, you can ask students occasionally to click if they're listening. And so it only tallies that for the first 30 seconds. And then you can award points if that's your classroom management system. So table points or group points, or I use Class Dojo, so I could award participation points for that as well. And then for engagement purposes with a new topic, you can also use it for classroom review games. And those are probably two of my favorite ways to use it. You can use a clicker per team and give it to a table and play games like Jeopardy, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. A lot of those games are readily available on the internet. And my system, the CPS Responder, they have an actual program called CPS Rural PowerPoint, and that allows me to connect to PowerPoint activities that are already made. And I can set it up to move through a PowerPoint presentation. And then you can also connect it with Den Streaming, another one of my very favorite things. And so one of the things that I've done, you show a short clip of a topic without sound. Actually, Lloyd mentioned that earlier. But then you ask students to think about what they might be learning. And then based on what they saw or maybe even what they heard, if you use audio files, they can answer a multiple choice question and then, you know, get some satisfaction on whether or not they're right. And then finally, you can use those clickers for formative assessment. Questions can be posed on the fly. So as I'm moving through my lesson, I can ask students to respond either with their confidence level, so maybe how confident are you? I can ask them a question that I'm hoping they can answer now that we've gone through some of the content, and I can get an idea right away. Are they understanding it? If the majority of the students are not, then I know that I can spend a little more time in that area. So just a few things, hopefully helpful. If you don't have access to clickers or classroom responders, there are cost-effective ways or cost-effective responders. The iClicker is actually a great one and slightly less expensive. So hopefully that was helpful for you, and thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Rhonda. And I'm actually going to just pass it right over to Crystal, because Crystal is also joining us this evening to talk a little bit more about using classroom response systems or student response systems in the classroom. So I'll have Crystal kind of build on some of the ideas that Rhonda shared, which are awesome. Thank you, Rhonda. And Crystal, just make sure you take yourself off mute.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Irby, and I am finishing my 4th year of teaching in Albuquerque, New Mexico. An interesting fact about me is I think I may have been named for teaching science. I can spell my name with element symbols from the periodic table. And so I'm going to continue to build on the great overview that Rhonda just shared with us. So we can actually just move on to this very quickly. Two of the big points for me is that the clickers give each student a voice in your classroom. And they also provide for thorough data analysis, and that's what I'm really going to focus on, is how you can use the data to increase discussions in your classroom. So I would start by putting up a question, like this example here about photosynthesis. And I have the students discuss with their partner or their group before I even activate the vote. So I'm walking around the classroom, listening to the discussions that they have, and once they've had that discussion, then I would allow them to vote. And so the vote that comes up in the system I have is the blue bar graph, and students can quickly see where they fit in with the rest of their class. And in this example, B would be the correct answer. And so when the students see this, I do not have it set for the correct answer to show so that we can have these higher order conversations. So the students who put A might be thinking, wow, I'm way off of what my class might think. Or the student who put B might be thinking, well, gee, I thought I was correct, but half of my class put D. I mean, these are conversations that kids are already having in their heads, and we should be having these conversations out loud in our classrooms. And so you can see the list of names and letters next to the bar graph is what students put as their individual response. And I can bring that up on the screen as well. And so I would bring that up to have a conversation. Now, this part of the process completely depends on what students put. None of my classes turn out the same. I end up having different conversations with my different classes. And so you really have to be flexible in order for this process to work. And so in this example, I would call on Devin. Devin, you put B. Can you justify your answer? And so then he's using his higher order thinking skills to justify why he put his answer. And then I'm going to call on another student, Ramona. Why do you think someone might put A? Her answer wasn't A, but now she has to put herself in someone else's shoes, you know, think about what were they thinking to select that answer. And so I might ask, you know, 2 or 3 students to have this conversation with our class. And after this process, I still don't reveal the correct answer. I teach. I have some sort of mini lesson. The students are engaged in maybe an activity up at the interactive whiteboard, interacting with the content there, working in their interactive notebooks, drawing, writing, whatever. After I've taught that mini lesson, I come back to this same question, and I have the students again discuss before I activate their vote. And so once they've had this discussion, then I let them vote. And so these are the results just from a couple of weeks ago. After these discussions, my 3rd period and 4th period were all on the same page, understanding that content, and it was really, really exciting. 1st period, I'm guessing we just weren't all awake yet. And so using these clickers, it's really made my classroom very engaging. The thing about this method is that you really only have time in your class to really focus on one really good question in this process. And so I just really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys like to give this one a try. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Crystal. And there was a quick question in the chat window about how long was the session? Was it a 2-hour session, or how long did it take you to get through all of that?
Oh, this lesson?
Yeah.
1 hour.
Okay. Perfect.
1 hour class period.
Okay. Awesome.
But that is a really good question because the time is so important to spend on having those conversations. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. And I know we're running a little over time. We've got one more presenter. Last but certainly not least this evening, we have Lindsay Sipe joining us from Charlotte area. So Lindsay, I think I just passed the ball over to you, but we'll have you close us out before we open it up for questions, and then I'll also be sharing a link to your certificate for attending this evening, as well as a link to this entire presentation. So you can download it and share it with others. So Lindsay, take it away.
Thank you, Jenny. So my name is Lindsay Sipe. I am at Lake Norman Charter School, which is right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I am an instructional technology specialist for Lake Norman Charter, which is just a middle school and a high school. This is my 5th year in education. And my interesting fact is the only thing really exciting going on in my life right now is that my husband and I are expecting our first baby in August, and her name is Hadley. And today I'm just going to be talking to you very briefly about how I flip my PD. I know flipping the classroom has become a really trendy topic, and it's something that we're seeing a lot in the classroom. So I decided to start flipping my professional development just to give myself a little bit more bang for my buck, because I'm the only instructional technology specialist. So it just stretches me a little bit further. And it's always, you know, the reason I decided to do this was it's difficult for teachers to let go of their planning periods. A lot of times they have conferences, phone calls, things going on, and it's difficult for them to stay after school. And so I do provide face-to-face PD for teachers throughout the week at a preferred meeting time, but one person providing PD for 120 teachers isn't very inducive. I don't have a lot of time for it, especially when it's a small group of just 5 teachers or so. I'm able to share ideas very easily, and I have them forever, which I love. Much like students, teachers a lot of times feel very uncomfortable admitting that they don't know something, or that they aren't willing to try something, or that they don't understand a topic, or maybe a step that they missed during the PD. And teachers really do hate to make mistakes in front of other teachers. Even though we can laugh about it, we all kind of cringe when that happens. So the thing that I love about this is my teachers are able to go back and watch these videos as many times as they think. So if they need to understand a concept a little bit better, or how they might use a website or a web tool in the classroom, they can go back and review again and again. So let's go ahead and we'll flip to the next one. So my pros and cons list. Me providing PD for 5 teachers at a time with 120 teachers is somebody who never gets to sleep. So I definitely get a lot more bang for my buck when I get to send out a flipped PD classroom. And I hear teachers say, I watched your video 100 times, and I think I've got it down pat now. I only have one question for you instead of 15. And I also have a lot of teachers that have their students watch the videos. So if they're having their students do an activity that I did on my blog with my flipped PD, the students are actually watching it. So then I hear in the hallway, hey, I saw you on a video. You were showing us how to make a paper slide. It was really cool. We had a lot of fun doing that. So that's really cool as well. So if I'm not available to co-teach or push into the classroom for that period, most of the teachers know that the students will be able to run with the topic or new support, or this new tool with the teacher support, and having me explaining how to do it in the video. Next year, my district is going 1-to-1, and I want my students to know if they have a question on how to use iMovie or how to use a web tool, they can go onto my blog, find my video on movie making, and it will give them a step-by-step tutorial on how to create an iMovie. Some of the most successful PD I have provided to the teachers I had them watch the videos first before they came to the PD session, so we didn't have to spend a majority of time on the how-to stuff. We spent a majority of time doing the activity and me supporting them, and then working on how they were going to embed it into their upcoming units of study. The one downfall of this is that teachers really have to motivate themselves to go to the site. So I'm brainstorming some ways right now to get my teachers to earn continued education credits for attending online PD sessions, which means that I'll embed some sort of assessment after the video clip, and teachers will have to actually teach the content of the PD in order to earn the credit. And of course, the last thing that we all know that we have to do as professional educators is that we have to provide a record saying that we have done all of these great things. And it's really nice that it's all right there on my blog, so I can just scroll through it and say, hey, these are some of the things that I have been doing and some of the support that I have been providing for my staff without me having to go back and do things and create a list. So how do I pick my weekly PD topics? I look at a few different things. I reflect upon if I get a lot of emails one week regarding one topic or two topic areas or a question. How many PD requests did I get for that particular website or topic? When I walk through a classroom, is there anything that I think the teachers could benefit from seeing, maybe something that they didn't know? What kind of questions did I get from students as well as the teachers? Are there any big projects that are coming up that students might struggle with and teachers might need PD on the topic? Administration concerns or things that they would like to see more of in the classroom, and of course teacher suggestions as well. So when I started doing this, I was using Jing, which is made by TechSmith, and it was $15. It was free, but you could only get 5 minutes of recording. So I upgraded for $15 a year, and I got unlimited recording. It could go to YouTube. It was fabulous. TechSmith, unfortunately, did away with Jing, which was a sad day in my life. After 5 years of using it, I was a little bit attached, and I had to find something new to use. So I started dabbling around in some web tools like Screencast-O-Matic, which works really good. It's fine for the basic stuff, but I wanted just a little bit more. So I finally upgraded and paid for Camtasia, which is made by TechSmith. It's $75 with your education discount. And I really like Camtasia because it records a video of me recording the screen. It highlights my cursor. When I click on my cursor, I can add in annotations. I can add in text over my recordings, and it creates a really nice product. And then if I want to give it a little bit more of a professional look, I export it from Camtasia into Adobe Final Cut Pro to add titles and clips and transitions and all that stuff. But that's not really necessary. You can really just roll with something free like Screencast-O-Matic. So, and this is my blog that I put all of my flipped professional development on for my teachers to take a peek at. And that is what I have for you.
Awesome, and I'm going to just put in the chat, so if they want to visit your blog, I'm just going to put the URL in there for them. And I also just shared a link to this entire presentation, all the slides from this evening from all of the presenters. I shared a link to that as well. So I know we've gone a little bit over, and I think these are all just so fabulous and amazing. So while I am finding the URL for, here we go, for your certificate of attendance. You can see it's a tinyurl.com, and I'll put it in the chat window as well. I just wanted to take a few minutes to open it up to questions that you had for any of the presenters this evening. So just use the chat window to ask any questions you have, and I'll be adding the link to the certificate of attendance.